everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at some of the two-year-old stakes action this Saturday at Belmont at the Big A. Race 6 is the Grade 1 Frizette for the two-year-old fillies, going the one-turn mile distance, a prep race for the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies later in October. And we've got a field of 11 signed on for this race, a really competitive field. We'll get into the handicapping in just a second. Before we do, though, you don't want to remember the DRF launched a podcast recently. It's called Off the Track, hosted by our colleague Gino Bacola. I've had some great guests on recently. Barbara Livingston, the photographer. We've had trainer Miguel Clement on in the past week. So definitely check out some of those new episodes of Off the Track, and make sure to subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel to catch any new episodes that get launched in the coming weeks. You can also access Off the Track on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Mike, let's take a look at this 11-horse field for the Grade 1 Frizette. And as we mentioned in our preview of the Alcibiades that we did earlier today, Tommy Joe landed in that race, and I think reduced the field a little bit because a lot of rivals maybe didn't want to run against that previous Grade 1 winner. But this Frizette field is pretty wide open. A lot of these fillies have a similar set of accomplishments, and they all look fairly evenly matched.
They really do. I mean, they're all so lightly raced still for the most part that there's a lot to try to figure out here, not only as far as, how they match up as far as talent goes, but also, how is this race going to be run, David? And, what's this pace going to look like, and who's going to be able to adapt to it? You have just a bunch of fillies who have been showing really good speed too, en route to victory. And something's going to have to change here, it feels like.
Yeah, the two horses that I pegged as the favorites on the morning line, the number 6 Iron Orchard and the number 2 Carmel Coast, they've only shown one way to do it in their limited prior starts, and that's going right to the front end. And we'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector as we talk about these two runners, Mike, because they both have a ton of early speed. And I think the big question for each of them is, how fast do they have to go to get to the front end with each other and maybe some other speeds in the race? And can they carry their speed the mile distance, especially if this fast pace develops?
Yeah, all those things are going to come into play here, and it's what makes it such an interesting and difficult race to decipher here. Because you're right, you have to also add in the mile for this race too. Who's going to handle the added distance? I mean, Iron Orchard she's been visually impressive in her 2 wins. Sort of lower level races, I would say. There's nothing to knock about her though, and certainly Carmel Coast was one of the more impressive 2-year-old debut winners as far as fillies go at Saratoga.
Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1, Jetty's Home, who is still a maiden coming into this race, but she's run pretty well in all 3 prior starts, hitting the board each time. She was privately purchased after her second start when she finished second at 20-1 at Saratoga early in the meet, and came back in one of those auction-restricted races last time in her first start for the New Barn, now trained by Safi Joseph. And she stayed on decently, Mike, but I didn't see a big excuse for her to lose as the favorite, and she's just going to have to run a lot better against a field at this quality.
Exactly. I mean, listen, her races are fine, but they don't really make her a contender in a race like this. Unfortunately for her, this Frizette came up super strong with some really fast fillies to her outside. It just feels like an impossible spot for her.
The number 2, Carmel Coast, was one of the more impressive 2-year-old filly debut winners at Saratoga this past summer. We'll take a look at the stretch run of her race when she delivered at 5-1 odds for trainer Whit Beckman. And she showed a lot of early speed right from the gate this day, quickly established the front end. But once she was asked to go in the lane, she really puts away this field impressively, including lovely Christina, who's second in here, and she's back in this field. We'll talk about her in just a little bit, but that one came back to win, validating the speed figure that Carmel Coast got. And Mike, that 86 buyer, it's the top number in this field. The big question is she going to get better or worse, stretching out an extra furlong and a half?
Yeah, I mean, she has that question to answer, and so does just about every one of her rivals, David. So we'll see, who it affects more than the others. There's just a lot to like about her career debut. I mean, it felt like she just did everything right. She was sprinting through the stretch in that race. Sort of makes you feel like, and she's got plenty of pedigree to stretch out. There's a lot of turf in her pedigree, but she's got plenty of pedigree to get at least a mile. Her debut was a serious performance, but there is more talent in here. There is speed to her outside. So it just feels like maybe there's a more difficult trip coming for her here. I think she's good, but it doesn't mean you have to take a short price on her against a field like this.
The number 3, Riley Tolia. She does already have a grade 1 placing under her belt, but she was a distant third behind Tommy Joe in the spinaway last time. And like, I don't know how you feel watching back that spinaway, but to me, it sort of felt like there was very little running going on behind the top 2 finishers that day. So I don't know how much stock I really want to put in that third place finish for Riley Tolia last time. It did feel like she stayed on decently at the end, and she kind of has the profile of a horse that could be just fine going a mile. She just has to run a lot faster doing it to be competitive with this field.
Yeah, you're not. She's not one of the fillies in here that you're going to be super excited about betting in this race, just based off of her first 2 starts. I actually liked her debut. I thought she did some good things in there. She was kind of green, a horse that had to come from off the pace, but she, sort of kicked in nicely, I thought, to win that race at the end. So maybe that'll be a good sign for her here in a race with a lot of pace in front of her. But she had a lot of pace in front of her in the spinaway last time, and she never really made her presence felt.
The number 4, Rina's Revenge, is a New York bred that is stepping way up in class after beating state breds on debut at Saratoga. But Mike, she did everything right in that race. I mean, she didn't break that. I mean, she broke okay, but didn't have a whole lot of early speed, got outrun passing the half-mile pole. But once she commenced her rally, she just put in this relentless bid from off the pace and angled out to the top of the stretch and won that race going away. And the bettors expected it because they bet her down to 7-2 odds for a barn that doesn't always take that kind of money on debut. But Ken McPeak has been in the midst of a very strong season with his 2-year-olds, and this filly actually has plenty of pedigree to go longer on the bottom side.
Yeah, I like that about her. As far as the pedigree goes, I really do feel like she's got like a sort of a sneaky good pedigree for a New York bred. And like you, I just thought it's only a 59 buyer. I liked her debut. I liked the way that she ran in that race. She was off the pace, but she never really got outrun. She was keeping everybody within range, even though she was off it, and she put in a good finish at the end of that race.
The number 5, Sicane, is a horse that won her debut race down in Florida at Gulfstream Park, going the 7 furlong distance. So unlike some others in this race, she's only got 1 extra furlong to negotiate as she stretches out in this Frizette. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that Gulfstream Park debut. And Mike, kind of like Carmel Coast, who we talked about earlier, this filly showed a lot of good gate speed, but I like the way that she relaxed on the front end. And you can see here, once she gets asked to go, receiving some challenges in upper stretch, she really responds to those challenges and finishes well through the wire.
Yeah, I like that about her too. I'm glad that you brought up the distance as well, because I don't think it should go unnoticed. It's a 7 furlong race and not a 6 furlong race. You can go back and watch the full replay too. Man, was she fast from the gate. I mean, yeah. She flew out of there to make the lead. She did take on a challenge around the turn, and as you said, just shed that horse really easily and finish the race off it. She looks like a filly that can really run, David. And when you sort of dig into her pedigree, there's plenty of it there. This is a Godolphin female family in the 2nd generation. There were some good horses in there and horses that could go long. But there was a lot to like about her.
Another filly who's been quick out of the gate is the number 6, Iron Orchard, who has sprinted in both prior starts, and they've basically been carbon copies of each other. As she quickly gets to the front end, she goes fast, does it very easily, and we'll take a look at the replay for last race in the Seeking the Ante. And the same thing has been the finish, Mike, where she just gets geared down to the wire, running away from these fields really under her own power. You could see Draw Rosario each time just kind of shakes the reins at her. She opens up, and then she's just going to be taken in hand with the final 16th to go. So, I mean, you might watch these replays and think, well, how much faster could she have gone? I mean, she got an 81 buyer, which isn't quite as fast as Carmel Coast, but maybe she could have gone a few points faster in these races. The big question for me is whether or not she can carry this speed the mile distance, because she's been so fast and professional. I do kind of wonder how much upside there really is with her.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about her. And I don't really want to knock her. They paid a lot of money for her earlier this year off of a fast workout, and she has brought that right to the racetrack. I mean, when you just watch her first 2 races, and I know the first one was an auction restricted maiden special race, and the second one was against New York breds. She's looked really good winning. I mean, she's never had to get down to serious business yet. She'll have to get down to serious business here. She'll have to do it over a mile, and that makes it tough to take a short price on her. But so far, man, I'm not knocking this filly. She's looked good.
Mike, I wonder what your take is on the number 7, Chopsticks, who's coming in for Brad Cox and might actually be a fair price given some of their, less than inspiring speed figures she's gotten in her first couple of races. I mean, she won them both in workmanlike fashion. She did get pace to close into on debut, and I liked the way that she responded to a challenge in mid-stretch when she made it 2 in a row, winning that Ellis Park debutante last time. Just wondering what you think of the fields that she beat, because that was the concern for me.
Yeah, I feel like I could argue that the 2 fields are maybe better than they look, because I do feel like the runner up from her debut. I know that they ran her. Was she in the spinaway and she didn't run that well? but she's fast, man. I feel like that horse is probably better than she might look on paper. So I'll give Chopsticks a little credit for just blowing by that horse in the stretch first time out. You know, kind of like you, I felt like she was workmanlike in the debutante, but I did like when she got challenged in the stretch. She found plenty in there. She was holding that horse off all the way to the wire. So I don't know, man. I think she's good. I think she's okay. I think she can get the right trip in this race because she's already proven that she'll just sit and make a run through the stretch, and maybe that'll really work here. I don't love her, but I could see myself using her if she's, 8 or 10 to 1.
Yeah, it's a big class test, but she could be a fair price for some dangerous connections. The number 8, Ice Cream for Everyone, is one of 2 fillies that finished in the exacta in an August 23rd maiden race. We'll take a look at the stretch run in just a little bit when we get to the winner. But Ice Cream for Everyone, Mike, she was in a bumping incident at the start with the horse that did actually win the race. It looked like Ice Cream for Everyone kind of got herded in and looked like lost her hind end when she got bumped at the start. So both of those horses wound up towards the back early. This one was closing decently down the center of the racetrack when she got into the clear. I thought she had her shot at it and just kind of got out closed at the end. And we'll see if she gets better with that at ground.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. When you go back and if you're going to pull that replay, we're going to show you the stretch run in a bit. But if you're going to pull it, go back and watch the start of it because they both had trouble at the start. It did feel like 5 bars probably took the worst of it there. But this horse had trouble in her own right. After that, she moved ahead of 5 bars around the turn. She had a clean run down the outside in the stretch, and she just wasn't good enough, but she ran fine in there.
Let's take a look at that stretch run that we were just describing with 5 bars, the number 9 winning the race. And as Mike said, we're not going to show the start here, but you can take a look at that in your past performances on DRF when you watch it. The head-on as well is really instructive because 5 bars just gets sandwiched between horses at the start, has to check very badly all the way back to last. So she had a lot of ground to make up in this race. But Mike, I really liked the way that she sort of built momentum coming off the turn and then continues it as she's rallying between horses through the stretch, which is not something that every 2-year-old is willing to do. A lot of them want to get angled out into the clear and make that run on the outside, but she did split horses in the late stages to get the job done. Look, she got pace to close into, and it was not a fast race. She only got a 60 buyer. But when you watch that replay, she kind of towered over her competition. She just looks like a physical horse that really does want the mile distance. And I can't necessarily say that I get that impression from a lot of runners in this race. So I think that she's got upside. We'll see what price she is.
Yeah, agree. That's what I was going to say. I'll wait and see what kind of price she is, but I'll just agree with everything else that you said about her. I mean, first of all, the trouble that she had at the start of that race, it basically eliminates most horses, especially 2-year-old filly first-time starters. So just the fact that she was able to overcome, that's a good sign. Also, when you watch the end of that race, David, as you said, she had to come through between, but you could tell that she knew that she was winning that race. If that doesn't sound like a ridiculous thing to say, she went right to her wrong lead as soon as she passed that horse. She threw her ear straight up in the air. This horse really ran first time out. You made her 6 to 1. I don't know if I would bet her at that price in this field, but I think she has a chance to be really good.
Yeah, I think she could become a popular pick in this race, and I say that as somebody who, spoiler alert, I actually like her in this spot, but I won't be surprised when she does attract a lot of support in here. The number 10, Steer Clear. She is one of 2 Todd Pletcher runners that is rounding out this field towards the outside. And these horses have very similar profiles. Mike, Steer Clear, she ran well on debut, finishing second to a good one in Ornellaio, has since gone to the sidelines. And then she came back to break her maiden, going 7 furlongs. Next time out, she got a very easy trip that day, setting a comfortable pace, and nobody could get to her in the end. But at least she does have that 7 furlong wind under her belt, and she did draw well outside of the other speed.
That's true. I am gonna, hold her last race just against her a little bit. I mean, this is one of those races where, it's almost like, pick one or pick too many, David. And yeah. I'm gonna hold Steer Clear's last race against her just because she had such a soft trip breaking her maiden. And I'm gonna say, I recognize that she actually ran pretty well first time out. So I do think she's pretty good. But again, you can't like them all. And I'm gonna hold the maiden win against this filly.
And like I said, the number 11, Lovely Christina's got a very similar profile to that filly we just discussed, also going out for the Todd Pletcher barn, second on debut, won her next start. She was second to Carmel Coast, who's actually back in this race, and she came back and was pretty professional. We'll take a look at the replay of her maiden victory last time. Now, she was actually cutting back slightly in distance, going 6 furlongs, but Mike, she took multiple challenges here at the top of the stretch. You could see she's in between horses, kind of surrounded, and I like the way that she's able to create some separation on this field. She is hanging on her left lead for most of the stretch run, but she goes away at the end, and she's got a little bit of pedigree to go longer, but I do wonder how far she really wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, that's a valid question. It's a valid question for most of them, but it's certainly valid for Lovely Christina. I just like her maiden win more than that of her stablemate, the Tron, right to her inside, just because she did way more work in that race where they, it was a big field and they actually came after her and they made her run. And she ran hard the entire way before she prevailed. Her debut was fine. She was no match for Carmel Coast, but she ran fine in there, chasing all the way, clearly second best.
Let's go to our picks for this grade 1 Frizette, a really interesting race to handicap. As you could tell, we can make cases for a lot of runners in this field, and we've got some different picks in this one. Mike, you're going to go to the number 5, Sicane, who was pretty impressive winning her debut down in Florida.
Yeah, I'm just going to take her because I do think, even though it looks like on paper that she just got absolutely loose on the lead, and she kind of did because she's really fast. When I watched that race back, I feel like she's handy enough that if they outrun her early in this race, I think she might be okay with that. I liked her race a lot. I liked that it was at 7 furlongs. I really like her pedigree. I think she's going to get the mile. And I also feel like she's going to be a fair price in here.
I did see a ton of speed in this race, and I wanted to upgrade some horses that could come from off the pace. I think got that New York bred, the number 4, Rina's Revenge in there, but I put the number 9, 5 Bars on top. As Mike was saying, she just had trouble on debut that makes a lot of horses lose first time out, and she got the job done in spite of it. She's got to run faster here, but I do think that she's got the capability to do so. 9, 11, 4, 6 for me, and 5, 2, 7, 11 for Mike in race 6 at Belmont at the Big A, the grade 1 Frizette. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.